So in this course, in this YouTube video, you know, if you get into the course, you're going to be able to get all the different links and all the products, and I'm going to go into a little bit further explanation of installing this product. But if you're just watching this on YouTube, know that I am a tile setter. I am a certified tile installer. I love tile. It's something I had passion for, and that's the reason I built my entire business around it. But some people just don't have the skill set, the time, or the money to be able to do tile, especially when it comes to all the equipment it takes to do tile. It's definitely something that takes a while to get really good and experience with. So, you know, basically I'm just saying the reason that I'm going to be installing this product, this is called Six3tile. This is a PVC material, 1/4 inch thick, high strength, has a gloss finish on it, so it's going to be very durable. But what this is going to do is allow you to go over your existing tiled shower and get that tile look you are looking for. And what's really awesome that really makes this look exactly like tile is that you're actually going to be grouting it just like you would a regular tiled shower. So by the time we're done, it's going to be difficult, Pete. You're not going to be able to tell the difference between tile and this. So I think this is a great alternative. This is going to be a lot less expensive than doing a tile surround. I'll get into some details later on in the course about what it would be difference between doing a tiled shower and doing this and how much money you might be saving. And then you be the judge of what this outcome looks like and see if that's something that you would consider doing rather than getting into all of that tile work. Okay, so the first thing I would say, you know, these old showers, you definitely, I think at this point, even if we're doing a product that we're going to be going over tile, you really want to change out your shower faucet, especially if it's like 30 years old. I don't really know how old this exactly is, but it's definitely something that's going to be problematic. And this is the time to do it. So I'm going to show you the best and easiest way to go about this without having to tear everything apart to get into. Now, really, you know, there is no reason you couldn't just cut this all out and just patched it before you put the new tub surround in. So you don't need the actual tile. You just need some kind of backing for this to be able to be glued to. So hopefully I can just do this all within this section of the tub. If I can't, I'm just going to cut this out and then I'm just going to patch in a piece of wallboard before I put it up. But this is the time to do this, and what we're going to be doing is installing one of my favorite valves. This is made by Hammerhead. This is all brass and stainless steel, including the actual cover. I really dislike plastic. I'd much rather have a stainless steel cover that is going to be, you know, looking great, durable, something that's going to last a really long time. And that's what Hammerhead does do. This is going to be a very simple valve. It has just regular male adapters that you adapt to. But how we're going to make this easy is basically using some shark bite fittings, so we can just connect to the existing copper. We actually are going to be running some new PEX down into the basement because there has been some issues with the copper having some pinholes. So the water supplies we're going to change out, but everything else, copper for this, copper for that, we'll be able to do that all through this opening. So let's go ahead and take this apart. Okay, so well, that's not going to work. So we are going to need some a copper stub out, because there's not going to be any tub spout that connects to that. You're going to need 1-inch copper. So I'm actually just going to cut this out. I'm just going to cut this section out so that I can get in here. Maybe I'll just go up to, it doesn't really matter. You know, I can cut this whole thing out and then be able to patch in around this. And then when we glue the new piece on, we'll be good to go. So I'm going to go get my grinder. Okay, so this is the copper. As you can see, they did a lot of replacement because of the pitting, basically pinhole leaks created. So I'm going to cut this. I'm just going to attach it to here, put new PEX from here, and then the hot water supply. I'm just gonna basically use a shark bite fitting on here and then make the rest of PEX. So at least everything up above will be PEX and be good to go. Just down here, you know, you're just gonna have, you'll be able to service this when it needed. All right, so we're just going to use a male adapter to go into this PVC, CPVC. I'm going to use a little bit of pipe dope over the Teflon tape. I'll put a little shut-off valve here. Okay. Okay, so then just mark 1 inch. So that's where I want my shark bite to slide into. So we're just going to slide this guy right on. Just make sure it meets your mark. We do want to sand this copper fitting. Just indicate 1 inch so you know that you're sliding this on properly. And just slide right on there. Right down to that mark. Now we got 2 shut-offs. We can turn the water back on. Make sure we don't have any leaks. Okay, so we're gonna be just cutting the copper for the shower head. All right, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna just use a shark bite fitting and we're gonna connect that right to our shower head. So this is gonna make it a lot easier rather than running a new pipe up and having to cut the pipe out up there. So let's go ahead and prep our valve first. Some Teflon tape on every one of these male adapters here. You wanna go clockwise with the rotation so that when you thread your fitting on there, it doesn't pull the Teflon tape off. So just make sure you're going in a clockwise rotation. 4 to 5 revolutions is usually good enough. And we'll just use a little bit of pipe sealant. You don't need a lot, just need a little bit just to grease. Sure there's no leaks. Now if you're connecting the copper, you can go ahead and use those shark bite fittings all the way around these guys, so it just has like a coupling that you just slip right on and then a female adapter. But we're going to be doing PEX for everything else. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and use another shark bite for the bottom so that we don't have to do any soldering. Not that soldering is difficult, it's just, you know, why take the whole valve apart, spend all that extra time when you can just use a shark bite. It really does make it easy. So if you already had a tub copper stub out, you can just simply reconnect that as well. But in this instance, we're gonna run another piece of copper, and what we're gonna do is just use this shark bite stub out. So this will basically, because you really wanna have copper coming straight down your tub spout, mainly because any backflow, like these little fittings, create resistance. So you can have backflow that comes up through the shower head. So even when you flip the lever, when you flip the lever down for your tub spout, it'll still have some back pressure. So that's why you can't use the PEX for this unless you had a separate diverter. Now, if you had a separate diverter that switches everything, then you can do whatever you want on this. But because the diverter is on the tub spout, that's why you have to have everything the same diameter inside. So the shark bite's going to allow that. So I'm just going to cut a small piece of copper here. Ideally, it's best to measure this 1 inch on the other side. So just have a little bit of an indicator of where we need to slide these things onto. And then seriously, it's just as simple as pressing it on, making sure you're down to your fitting. Okay, so we have our tub spout. Okay, so we're gonna need to build this out. So let's go ahead and get our cover back on here to see where we need to be. So ideally this cover should be even with your finished wall. Even if we just went straight with the tile, that'd be fine. There's a variation of about 3/8 of an inch. You can be further back or further out. Now, I advise you be further back in. You can always shim this out and bring it out. If you have it too far out, there's really not much you can do. So let's go ahead and get some blocking here so that this is even with our tile. Yep, that'll work. So it's nice and even with that. So we're going to get the PEX on here because we can slide this up and down and be able to slide this up and connect that. Let me get that other blue PEX. Okay, so this is a configuration that will make it easy to slip onto your shower head and replace this valve. Seeing this guy up. Make sure you deburr this. Measure up 1 inch. Up to that line. Okay, perfect. So we're just going to go ahead and cut part of this off here. We're just going to take this thing off here because we really don't need this. I'm just going to cut a 4-inch hole. Now you could even use a piece of plywood for this. This is a piece of foam board, but it's whatever you got. I mean, the important thing is that it's flush with the tile, so when I put the other stuff on it, it'll come even with it. So I'm gonna have to get some kind of blocking. So I got something to screw in here. I just need something here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here, I'm just gonna let this set up for a minute, but I'm gonna put some glue on either side of this. And we're just gonna glue it in so that I have something to mount this to. So we're just gonna glue this to the sides of the tile with this adhesive. Cool. Now, by the time that sets up, we'll be ready for the board to go over that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take our accessories off of all the tile. Towel hook. Doesn't really take much. And then just fill in the area with, I mean, you could use a patch material, you could use thin set. We're just gonna use the adhesive, but you do wanna have, you know, something there so that you don't scrape this off. Sometimes these towel bars or these soap dishes go inside of the wall, so sometimes you have an empty cavity here. So I would just do the same thing you did over here if that was the case. But this one was kind of nice. This is just surface. So we're just going to fill this in with the adhesive, let this dry. Probably add a little bit more to that when we go to glue the panel. But anything like that, you can just fill it in with the adhesive. And I'd say the only other thing that's kind of important here is just to make sure that this is all fairly flat, within reason. If you know, any tile that's falling off, just know that you're adhering to an existing tile. So if it's not holding onto the wall well, it's not going to stay intact. So I would say, you know, just make sure that there isn't any loose tiles. It's somewhat flat. We can level out the panels just a little bit with the adhesive. If you have like a low spot, we're going to use a 4-foot level to gauge things. But if we need to put a little bit more adhesive on one side to keep it straight, we can do that. Almost kind of like setting tile in a way. But yeah, so just fill in any of the holes that you made. And then what we're going to do, we're going to go all the way up to the ceiling. So the kits come in 9 panel and 12 panels. The 9 panel is only going to be about 70 inches. Since we have tile here, I wanted to go all the way up. So we got the 12 panel kit. And honestly, for the extra $100 or 150, whatever it is, for the 12 panel, I do recommend you just get the 12 panel. Because if you mess up on any of these cuts around the plumbing or whatever, you know, you have to order another panel. There isn't anything extra. So, you know, at least if you got the full kit and you were only, you know, if you're comfortable going to 70 inches, at least you have a couple other pieces to cut, because otherwise you're buying an extra panel. You can buy the panel by itself, but by the time shipping and everything is you might as well just bought the 12 panel. So if I was installing this for somebody as a contractor, I would be buying the 12 panel kit, and if they didn't need the other 3 panels, you know, so be it. But going all up to the ceiling is going to work. We're going to take out this crown molding because I want it to actually go straight to the ceiling. I mean, you could just go butt right up to it, but I think it's just going to look better having it look like this is all tile in here. Plus, I never liked having wood in the shower, so even when this is tile, it kind of looks bad. So we're gonna take that out too. Okay, so a lot of these old showers have a lot of soap scum on them, and before you go gluing anything on, you want to make sure you scrub everything, get that soap scum off, because you need to have the adhesive, you know, basically bond to the tile. So I'm just going to use a little vinegar multi-purpose cleaner, and I'm just going to clean this wall, make sure all the soap comes off of it, and you know, just allow that vinegar or the adhesive to actually bond to the tile. So I would do this before starting to cut the panels, just so this is all dry before you add the adhesive. All right, so the biggest challenge of going over tile is actually how you are going to finish the edging. So this is 2 outside corners. So this is a little bit unique. I would say most people don't have 2 outside corners. They usually have 1 flush wall and maybe 1 outside wall. But even if you're in a typical scenario where the tub is just on the back wall, depending on how thick your tile is going to depend on what kind of edging you're going to want to do this, especially going over existing tile. So this is a 1/4 inch thick. So the idea is to get something to wrap around the corner. Now I'd say the most inexpensive and easiest way is to simply use a corner molding like that. Honestly, that doesn't look bad, especially on an outside corner like this. I think that looks pretty nice. So you could definitely just use this. Another alternative I thought was a great idea. You know, I mean, there's a lot, you know, however you could come up with the idea on how to finish this I think is great, but they make a Schluter edging that will make an outside corner. So this is a 1/4 inch thick, and this is going to slide. And I'm going to cut that down a little bit. Let me cut this down a little bit. So this is called the Schluter Vin Pro. So this will slide right into that groove, and then you have a nice metal edging that goes along with it. What do you think of that?
Move those out of the way.
So this it's 3/4 of an inch. So by the time I get this on there, that'll cover that edge really nicely. So I think that's a great idea. Now, if you have really thick tile, they do make a step material. So this is really wide. So again, I'm not going to cut this down because this stuff's really expensive, and I'm not going to use it on this one. Yeah, I mean, it's about $100 for a piece of this. But this guy will have, you know, almost 1.5 inches. So if you have really bumped out tile, or you have a really messed up outside corner, this guy would be the way to go and, you know, provide a nice edge on an outside corner. This guy right here, since it's 3/4 right here, even if you did have a wall that came straight out, this would cover that edge pretty nicely. But really, I'd say the 2 alternatives that are the most economic and easy to find, because you have to special order this Schluter stuff. It took a couple weeks to get in. But you could just use a regular Schluter Rondeck too. So you could just use this little edging right here. And this would be great on a flat wall. So if this wall was coming straight out, you can just use this. It'd be just like a regular tile edging, and then you just caulk to the edge of the room. On an outside corner, you're going to end up seeing that edge of that tile. So this is not really going to work for an outside corner, but these are 5/16 inch. It's enough just to cover that. And I think this is really inexpensive, like 20 bucks for a piece of this. But on an outside corner, this PVC trim, actually, I think, you know, it really doesn't look bad, and it's going to cover very easily. This will actually give me a lot more flexibility. If I miscut the edge corner here, I can just, you know, you almost got a whole inch that you can never overcome your edging. So, you know, it's really up to your own personal preference and how you think it's going to look. But yeah, I mean, which one do you think?
I like the white one.
I mean, I do like this, just because it's different. I really do like this.
Put that one back up. I like the white one better. It looks less institutional.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of more mimics. Yeah, it is a little institutional. It's a little commercial.
It looks like hospital.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, I like the white.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, I knew I was gonna. You think that's good enough on the video on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just your
If
options.
you want to take, yeah.
All right,
if you
good.
want to take another take, you can. But you'll probably end up using the first one anyway. But we.
So just like a tile layout, you kind of want to make sure that that first row is level. Let's see what that existing tile looks like. Looks pretty level.
They did good.
Yeah, so really that tile layer is pretty good. Now, we're just going to set this right up to yeah, I mean, that looks pretty good. Just double check. It's got 23 and a half, 23 and 7/16. So it's like a 16th. No, actually that's 7/16 right there. So that is pretty even. And then this side, so it's a 16th off. Actually, that's quite a considerable on this one. So we got 23 3/4. So we got about a 1/4 inch lower on this side. So if we were to just go right off this back, so we got 23 and 7/16, and we got 23 3/4. So if we just set that back panel up, we're going to have a pretty nasty gap right here. You almost actually can see it here. They have it even with their tile. Their tile's level, and they got this big ugly joint right here. So we're going to want to cut down this back row to prevent this from happening. And the other thing, since the tile is coming outside of the tub, I never personally liked using 12x24s and just ending it right here, because then you got this little weird corner here. So I usually like to cut around that, so lowering this entire panel. So I think what we're going to do is cut off about 3 inches off this bottom row so that we can go down beyond the tub, and then we can have a nice cut around that corner. But let's just see what this is going to look like as far as, so if we went 3 inches, so this whole panel is 23 3/8. So if we went 3 inches down, 23 3/8. So then we would have 13 inches. And so 13 inches, if you were to go off the bottom of this, you're going to have like a 1 inch cut at the top. Now I don't like that, because I would not want to do that. So we might make this lower. Yeah, if we made this even lower, so let's just do a half a tile. 23 3/4, 23 3/8, and then we have 16, and 16 is going to provide us with a nice tile at the top. So you have like a 4 inch piece at the top, and then a 6 inch piece here. So 6 and 4. So I think that looks good. I'd rather have it a little bit more depth at the bottom, having a half a piece there. So what we're going to do is cut this back row 6 inches, and then we'll template the sides, make sure it fits the tub when we do the sides. So the easy part that we're going to do first is the back wall, because it's level, the tub's level, so we don't have to worry about you know, kind of cutting it at an angle. It's just the sides with the way the tub's leaning. So we're fortunate in that aspect. But if you did have an unleveled tub, you just basically want to measure down from your laser and then cut it. And what you want to do is leave about a 1/16 inch gap at the bottom, just like a tile layer. And the main reason for that is because you want to have some kind of spacing in order to have a nice caulk joint. So if you have like a spacer here, that'll provide a little bit of a gap. And then when you go to caulk that, it's going to last a long time because the silicone's going into the actual groove. So let's go ahead and cut this back panel down. These are the side panels. Obviously, this is just a 36 inch piece. So we're going to be cutting this down to fit. Okay, so measuring the back wall, measure both top and bottom. So we got 58.5. I'm going to take a 1/4 inch off of that, give me an 1/8 inch on the other side. So we're going to make it 58.25. And we're 58 and looks like 3/8. So I'm going to stick with that 58.25. I can trim it down if that doesn't fit. Yeah, 58, and yeah, we'll go 58.25. So this is considered a top panel. The main reason is because there's no tongue or groove at the top. So it's flat right here, and then we just have a little groove at the bottom. So this is a top panel, and this is a standard panel. So there's a tongue, and then there is a groove. So the tongue is going to be facing up. And that's going to be important to make sure you have it sitting up, because you want the top panel to slide over that. And what that also does is allow any water to just keep going down. So always have the tongue up. It's just kind of like hardwood flooring. So let's go ahead and cut 6 inches off the bottom. Now, there's a lot of ways you can go about cutting this. You could use a table saw. You can use a track saw like we're going to use. You could even use a regular circular saw if you wanted to. It's just a matter of getting a nice straight cut. This stuff is really easy to cut. It is PVC. So, but the biggest thing you want to do is just make sure you have a fine blade so that you're not splintering this apart, because the finish on the top can splinter easily. And in some circumstances, you can even use a utility knife. So we're going to show you each way about going about cutting this. And, it all depends on how much you want to spend on a tool to do it. But I'd say the first one we're going to use is a track saw. I think that is the most universal, easy one, and it has a fine blade to it. So let's go ahead and cut 6 inches off of this. All right, so my first way to cut this is with the track saw. These are pretty nice. Probably the most expensive way you can go, just because, the cost of the saw and the track. But I tell you what, if you're going to be doing a lot of different homeowner stuff, you can basically replace and not get a table saw and just have this. I was really surprised at how much I use this and how much I don't even bring out the table saw anymore, because this is pretty nice. Anything that's an uneven cut, I can just like set this track where I need it to, and I get perfect cuts. So, all right, so we're gonna go cut this down 6 inches. So it makes a nice perfect cut. So that's definitely one of the best ways you can go there. We need to cut this down to 58.25. So what you want to do is just cut one side, because this is basically set up so that it's even on either side. So you can either try to match it, which really, this is a 60-inch panel, 59.75. So it's really up to you whether you want to balance it out. I guess we might as well. I mean, 58 1/4 is taking like 1.5 inches off. Yeah, 1.5 inches. So we'll just take 3/4 of an inch off both sides to match up the pattern. Okay, so what you want to do, so this is where our line's going to be. So we just want to get some clear silicone in the corners, seal it. And then we're going to do one bead here. I wouldn't go against the tub deck necessarily, just bring it right down along the edge here. So just some silicone right at that tub deck. Okay, and this is Power Grab heavy duty construction adhesive. That's all you need to do for the panel. And so you can do it on the wall or the panel, whichever one's easiest. I think we're just going to do it on the wall. And you don't have to go crazy with this, just as long as you have a decent bead to adhere it to. And then the tongue has to face up, so we made sure we cut the bottom. So this is the tongue. Now be careful with this. Handling it, this can snap off very easily. Same with the bottom, but we don't have a groove on the bottom now. So we'll just go ahead and put this into place. I'm gonna use our spacers. Get a little space off the tub deck and just press that into the adhesive. Okay, so then make sure that your laser, everything's set, everything's level. That should make everything easier. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and cut the next panel. I think 58 1/4 just worked fine for that. 58 1/4. Didn't realize that was chipped on there. So the second way, I'm just going to use a regular circular saw on this one. The only thing I'm going to get is a vinyl siding blade to do this. This is going to have to fit over that groove. Yeah, okay. So you're just going to make sure that it's sitting in that groove evenly. And, you know, you can reference your laser again. That'll tell you whether you're seated far enough, but you can see that the joints are even. So it looks pretty good. This is the delicate aspect to it, and I don't know, must have been when I was moving it around in the package, but you can see here I chipped. This is the groove. This is where you want to slide it into the next piece. There's no way to fix that. Well, I shouldn't say there's no way to fix that. One nice thing about this stuff is you can actually just take an oscillating tool and cut this whole tile out if you actually messed it up. But where we're at right now, I don't really want to do that. Just because, you know, I'm at the point where I'm installing it still. So I don't see any, if this happened when I had it on the wall, then absolutely I would cut this piece out, adhere a new piece in, and then just grout it. So what I'm going to do, this is the top piece. So this is still a great groove here. So what I'm going to do is just prepare this for the top joint. Okay, so then, yeah, we'll just cut off the tongue on the other one, just butt it right on top. You know, so this would be a regular tub surround kit where you get 9 panels, so that's where it would end. That's why I think just having the 12 panel makes a lot of sense. Go all the way up the ceiling, it's gonna look better. So, all right, so we got 15 1/4, 15 5/16. 15 1/8 to 15 3/16. Oh, that was stupid. Oh boy. Ha. Didn't even cross my mind.
I saw it whenever you pulled it out. I was like, oh my God.
Oh my God, I didn't think about that at all. Well, gotta be inventive with the stuff. I mean, and this is just like replacing or repairing a piece. You can simply just cut it out and kind of set it like tile, really. So I would say that's the biggest downfall of this, is how easy it is to chip. And I just made a really dumb mistake. So hopefully if you're watching this course, it's going to prevent you from making a mistake like that. I wasn't even really thinking about the grooves lining up, and I really should have paid attention to that. So if you're going to cut out, if you have something messed up, you're going to have to basically cut it out and do a repair rather than trying to flip it upside down, because it obviously doesn't work that way. All right, so when you're going to go around a tub like this and having a round curve like this, you definitely want to template the actual panel before setting into place. because there is only enough panels to do this project. So it's just, even if I was doing tile, I would end up doing a template just to make sure that everything lined up correctly. But this really will save, you know, a lot of anxiety about cutting this, because we're basically, you know, this is a 6-inch piece down here, and we're going to wrap it down around the tub, and we want to have this nice radius so it looks really nice. So I'm just going to use a little bit of template material. This is just 1/4-inch plywood. This is, I just ripped it down with the saw, so this is going to help me gauge it. What I'm going to do is actually template another piece of plywood, make sure this is going to fit nicely, and then trace it onto the actual piece of 6-3 tile. So let me go ahead and just dot a little bit of adhesive here just to hold this in place. And then we're just use a little hot glue. So that should be able to trace that. And I'm just gonna let this overhang out, and then we'll just mark it on the back side of it. But that'll at least get me a good indication of what this panel is gonna look like. So let's go outside and trace it. Okay, so that's our template. You're on right now. Okay. That's nice and tight. Laser looks good. Yeah, I'd say that's definitely what we want to do. We'll just trace that, let that overhang. Just go ahead and put a clear bead of silicone down the corner again, and then right along the bottom. Wow, where the hell is that so far off? That's pretty far.
Why is it doing that?
Because this wall was out of plumb. Something like that, just to cut it down. Yep, that does it.
That's way better.
You know, I mean, because even that other trim would have worked, but the corner trim's definitely going to make it.
Find a lot of sins.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing.
It seemed like it when
It didn't. But it's a 1/4 inch off. That'll work. Move on to the next slide. This is a little bit shy, so I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue and Make sure that corner is tight. That'll work. This will be our template. Just check to see if you have any cracks, because this is going to be the cut part going along the tub. So these little corners are real easy to break. So just pay attention to, yeah, this is going to go right into the wall there. And I have this template straight up to the edge of my tile, not the tongue, but the top. And then we'll just bring this straight to my new edge here. Trace the back of this. Perfect. Yeah, definitely template. You don't want to screw that up. Even with my template, I kind of screwed up the hole, but I'm just going to fill that with silicone before I put the spout on. We should be good to go. All right, so these next panels are going to be pretty much easy, except just this one cutting out. But let's go ahead and get the other panel. Make sure that this is unplumbed. We might have to scribe cut that too. Looks good on this wall. That's weird. It's weird how it could be unplumbed on one side, not the other. So we'll just go ahead and work the back. All right, so with these panels, you know, when you have an open wall like this, it makes it a little bit easier, but I just try to get it a little bit outside of the corner, push it down, and then push the whole panel over. It's a lot easier with the sidewall that you can come in on, that's for sure. It's a 22 3/4 from the bottom. Panel. So, yeah. Well, that's a pretty fast tile surround. I mean, a little nerve-wracking with some of the pieces that chipped, but ultimately, I mean, that's what, 4 times as fast as doing tile, at least. I mean, typically when I do a tub surround, I could usually get the shower faucet in, waterproof everything, and then the next day I'll do the back wall of tile, and then basically the third day do the side walls, and then you clean up the following day. You gotta grout everything, and then silicone everything. So you're talking about 4 days, 4 solid days of tiling, and then yeah, I mean, so this is saving a lot of time. I mean, basically I had 4 hours into the shower faucet, What do you think? About 4 or 5 hours into this? So you're talking about more than half the time. More than half the time. One big difference between this and tile is the grout that you can use on this. So you don't want to use anything with an aggregate, anything that's sanded. I honestly probably wouldn't even use epoxy, even though it's a very fine grit. The only reason is this could scratch, you know, just from pressing it all in. So I would just go with the unsanded grout that they're recommending. Obviously you can test an area and see for yourself what works, but I ultimately think an unsanded is going to work great for this. So we got Mapei unsanded grout. So we're going to grout everything, let it dry, and then go ahead and caulk everything. And then we can pretty much get the shower back in operation. I guess that's the other thing that really saves a lot of time is by the time you start to finish to start being able to use the shower again. Definitely speeds things up. So I got this mixed up. You're not going to need a lot because there's not that many joints, but we'll just pack all the joints and then let it dry a little bit and we'll basically wipe it off. So you just want to keep the grout out of the corners and just obviously just pack everything tight.
Does it feel the same as grouting tile?
It's very smooth. I mean, it'd be like a high gloss porcelain, I guess. It would be similar to that. So just like any grout joint, you're just trying to fill it. Don't worry about too much on the surface. That'll all come off very easily. But if you don't pack it, then you got to go back. So we'll let this sit for about 10 minutes. And we'll sponge it off. Just make sure that everything's filled. Tell you what, by the time we're done with it, it's gonna be tough to tell whether this is tile or not. The grout really is gonna make a difference with the look. All right, so with unsanded grout, definitely don't put too much water on this, but basically it's been about 15 minutes and you just want to be able to mold it. So test an area, kind of do some circular motions over things, and if you start pulling out the grout, just wait a little bit longer. But basically you're just trying to really fine tune the levelness of the grout with this tile. So again, if you're pulling it out, wait a little bit longer and don't use too much water or you'll wash out the joint. But yeah, you should be able to just look closely at the joints and make sure you're kind of smoothing them even with the tile. And then once you wipe it off, get a microfiber cloth and just wipe off the excess water. This will probably haze up a little bit here in an hour, so we'll have to wash it down again, but microfiber cloth really helps get it off. Most important thing is to make sure that there isn't any water in the corner. So just make sure that everything's dry and ready to go. And then if you could try to get a continuous bead without getting too much excess, that's the better off you're going to be. Okay, so that joint is full. So we're going to use a little bit of Caulk Ease. This is a spray, and this is going to help prevent it from smearing onto the tile. Use one of my favorite. Hopefully this works. You always got to test this out to see if it's going to get the joint you want. But this is an Anvil caulking tool. All right, so we're just going to use white for the base of the tub. So this is a cast iron tub, so there's not going to be really much flexibility between the tub and the surround. But if you did have an acrylic tub that you're going over, I highly recommend you fill it up with water so that the weight of the tub is down, and that'll make sure that the caulking joint is a lot longer lasting. So fill the tub before you caulk if you have an acrylic tub. Cool. All right, so we'll just put the faucet on tomorrow because I don't want to mess up any of the caulking. And I want to show you the new shower faucet we're going to put on here. It's pretty cool. So, yeah. So, what do you think? 6 hours on the tub surround and about 4 hours on the faucet. So 10 hours, 2 days. Pretty light, easy days, ultimately. And then tomorrow will be literally just an hour. We're going to get some corner shelves in, put the trim on and be ready to take a shower. So one of the reasons I really do like these systems from Hammerhead is it's all stainless steel and brass fittings. So you're getting a really quality finish. So we obviously got the chrome aspect, but it's all stainless steel and brass. This has a great seal on it for going over this tub surround. So first thing I'm gonna do is put on the tub spout. This is a pretty easy one. You just basically slip it over the copper. So that's why we got that copper stub out for this. And you want to be about 1.5 to 3 inches from the wall. So we're 3.5. We'll cut it back to like 2 3/4. So you have a big variance there, 1.5 to 3 inches. So it's pretty wide range. There we go. Sand this up a little bit. Make sure there isn't any burrs on it. The one thing I did want to do is fill this cavity with silicone right where the spout is, just so if any water gets behind it, because I don't want to caulk the actual tub spout. That looks really bad if you try to caulk that. So just make sure you have a little bit of silicone around your pipe. And then we can just slip this on. Get the valve trim on here. Nice and sealed around there. There we go. This is you can't see it on camera obviously, but this weighs a lot. This is a solid piece of brass. Definitely pretty nice. I'm gonna put a little bit of Teflon tape on here. I'll just go like 4 to 5 revolutions. And then just on this part, I'm going to use a little bit of pipe sealant. Don't need a lot, just enough to seal around. Make sure you run it first before you put the shower head on. And then this has a little rubber gasket in it. So with that being on there, you can just simply thread it on. You don't have to put any Teflon tape on this. Nice. Nice. This does have an adjustment on it, so you get different sprays on it. So 3 different sprays. Nice. So if you're looking for a great gift or something just to upgrade your current shower. This is going to be it. This is a 3-spray dual shower head by Hammerhead. And what this is going to have is a rain shower head with a separate handheld. So this one is just a regular handheld. Works great, but if you really want a luxury shower, get one with a rain shower head. And I do have to mention, the first thing when you grab this box is how heavy duty this is, because they make everything out of brass and stainless steel. So it is a very heavy constructed material. So this is going to be fantastic. I mean, look at this rain shower head. This is pretty cool. It's an 8-inch rain shower head, stainless steel brass construction. And this is the part that makes it all happen, is this brass fitting that connects to your existing shower faucet. Boy, that is a heavy duty deal. So this is what's going to switch from handheld shower to both. And you just basically thread this onto your existing shower head. So this is the way to go. If you want to get a good gift for somebody, this is it. Even the cable is, you know, metal. So it has a nice feel to it, unlike the plastic type. Okay, so then as long as you have the rubber gasket in there, you can just connect this to your existing shower arm. It just keeps that from spinning. So this just keeps it from spinning. So a lot of those cheaper ones will just spin around on you. So as long as that's good. And this will be the rain shower head. Okay, then the dial on the left, we'll switch it. Yeah, much better. That's pretty awesome. And then you could do it on both if you wanted to. And then just obviously just the sprayer if you want it. So just to show you, this guy switches it. So you can put it on both. Just a rain shower head, which is way better than just the handheld for sure. Very cool. All right, so we're gonna put a couple corner shelves here because you need some storage here. So this is very simple. It's just a little clamp that clamps onto the glass. And we're just gonna do it right on the grout joint. And since this is tile behind here, we're gonna drill with a tile bit. I like these little spade bits. Put a little silicone. Looks pretty good. All right, so we're finished. Really only took 2 days. Spent a little bit of time this morning putting on some shelving and putting in a nice shower faucet, which that is pretty nice. When you save the money on a tub surround, you can afford to add different accessories that make it nice. So if you really want a nice shower head system, you can go ahead and afford to do that. But I wanted to go over my review of how I felt about putting this system in and comparing it to actual tile. Now, if you're watching YouTube here, you know that I primarily do tile, and it's something that I've had passion for many, many years, and it's just something that I really enjoy doing. But I know a lot of people, if it's your first time, it can be very overwhelming and complicated. So that's why they have products like this to make this a little bit easier for you. With the time aspect, no question, way faster, half the time than it does take to tile. Really I could have done this and been complete in 2 days, whereas the tile tub surround like this would probably take me a total of 4 to 4.5 days total to get out of the project. So if I was as a contractor, if I'm just doing a tub surround, I would be blanking out that entire week to accomplish this. This I was able to do in 2 days. And if I get more efficient at it, I guarantee I could probably get this done in a day and then be moving on to the next project. So time, no question about it. Cost, if you're a DIYer and doing this yourself, it's pretty much the same cost if you have all the tools and equipment to do tile work. So tools excluded, the cost is just about the same. You're talking about $800 for the tub surround kit, and then you're talking, the grout, the caulking, even this corner trim, different miscellaneous things. You're going to have that same kind of a cost with tile. So I would think that most just white plain 12 by 24 tiles are probably about $3 a square foot. So you're looking at like $600 for tile, but then with all the accessories to set tile, you're about the same. So $1,000 if you're DIYer. But if you don't have all the tools for tiling, then you're getting into way more expense to be able to do something like this. And then my last review point is just about what I feel about this compared to tile. Setting aside the installation process. This is, I have to say, it really is hard to tell whether this is tile or not just looking at it. It does have a nice gloss finish that's going to be easy to clean. So I would say both tile and this are pretty much the same. You are grouting it just like you are tile. So you're going to have the same common issues with any type of a grout shower. The caulking will eventually have to be redone. Sometimes the grout could be stained. And it's just something, anywhere there's a little bit of a rougher surface, just takes a little bit more cleaning. But overall, with an unsanded grout, it's going to be really easy to clean. Now, as far as durability, obviously porcelain tile is going to always win. It's going to be twice as more, not twice. It's just going to be something that's going to last a lot longer than this. Unless you took care of it, obviously. It's just that tile is durable. You can basically hit it with a hammer and it's not gonna fall apart. Whereas this, you can, I don't know what you'd be doing in the shower to actually ruin it, but as a contractor, if I had other contractors in this space, I'd be a little bit concerned if they drop their level against it or they drop their utility knife against it, because it can scratch, it can chip, it can, basically abrase this surface. So it's not as durable, but the end result, cleaning aspect, as normal showers go, I think you're going to be pretty much comparable with the being able to keep it nice. So all in all, I thought it was an easy installation. One thing I just have to mention again that I was a little bit stressed out about in this project was the actual groove part of each tile. Very, very easy to chip or crack. So you have to be very delicate when you're installing this. That's probably my biggest stress point on this. I kind of wish they would have something that made the corners of these tiles a little bit thicker so that, it's not as easy to chip. But you always can solve, hopefully the video has helped you out in solving those issues for you as well. So check out the links below. If you buy through my link, it does help out my channel, so I appreciate you buying it through there. And then I'm going to have a course on this as well, so you can get personal support from me. When you're in the course, you can leave a comment below any tutorial and I'm there to answer your questions. I don't have so much time on social media, but I do, spend my time helping people within my courses. So thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.